I'm Sally Mills from Lavolta, and welcome to Digital Bullets. We put together a series of questions about issues and developments within the digital sector. We've asked some senior people and industry experts to give us their point of view. We've also given them 20 seconds to answer the questions or they get the chop. Hope you enjoy. Can you name 2 people you admire in digital in Australia and say why?
Ian McDonald from Avenue A Razorfish, or Amnesia. I've done work with him over the years and I admire his thinking and his passion and his approach to things. I also have a lot of admiration for Laurel Papworth. I think she's quite sort of critical of things at times and quite controversial, but she's incredibly focused.
Well, I couldn't go past myself. What's not to like? I also think Monique Talbot's pretty inspirational. You've got a lady who started up a company, turns up to work once a week, disappears for 5 years and has babies and still manages to sell it for $2.5 million of dollars.
The first one is Steve Vamos, clearly the best person I've met in digital locally, because he's a natural leader and he's excited about the platforms. The guy can do everything. The second one, and it's a step down, but it's still a compliment, would be Wendy Hogan at CNET/CBS or whatever they call it now, because they're kind of the old BP, the quiet achiever.
I admire a lot of people in digital media, but to be specific, Dave Whittle, who's a friend of mine who runs a digital media agency called Mark, which is a spin-off from M&C Saatchi. He's a person who's taught me an awful lot. He's a young guy who always seems to be ahead of the curve in what's next and what's coming and how that works. And my old friend Tony Faure, who you know and is part of this series, I think is just one of the preeminent digital media guys. Always has a view on something, which is great. I like people with views.
I hugely admire Paul and Andrew Bassett, and probably more than anyone else. They thought up the company, ran the company, got it going, made it successful, floated it, and are still going and still running it really well. I can't think of anyone else who's doing that. So admire them for that. I also really admire probably 2 other people. Damien Waller, who runs iSelect, has run a sensational business, under the radar in a lot of ways. And Steve Knowles, who runs Downstream, I think has built a fantastic business in a couple of years.
Simon Baker, who is the ex-CEO and managing director of realestate.com.au. Why? Simon is a doer. He's the type of person that drills down and then comes up 10,000 feet. He's also a strategic, sort of what I call a strategic thinker, but in a controversial way. The other person I'd say is Kylie Little. Kylie is a co-founder of essentialbaby.com.au, which she sold to Fairfax Digital. Why? She understood the power of community, especially as it relates to parents, and harnessed it, monetized it, and created Australia's largest community of women online.
There's so many people in this industry I admire. Rachel Dixon for her longevity in it, Guy for his tenacity in the various jobs that he's had, Gary Hayes for his vision on where these sorts of things can go in terms of Second Life. I think that Ben Keneally and his persistence in making TV work on mobile has been great. I think there's a whole lot of people much higher up. Who do I really admire in this space? Haman Hezat, one of the most beautiful, intuitive, creative developers I've ever had the pleasure of working with.
There's 2 people that sort of spring to mind. John Butterworth, who's head of AMIA and actually sitting to the left of me here. So I think the job that he's doing in sort of standing up for our industry and continuing to try and develop the industry is admirable. But I also respect people like Dominic Carosa who, have built a company, taken it to the top, unfortunately have hit a wall and now bottomed out and then has dusted themselves off and gone again. I think that takes a lot of true grit and determination. I respect people like that.
One of the most influential people for me would be John Butterworth and his dedication to digital media, really putting a lot of heart and soul into it for a very long time. And the second person would be my old boss, Monique Talbot from Tempest Media. Watching somebody create an independent network and the dedication that goes behind the scenes to keeping that dream alive and ultimately the success of selling out to an international company.
Probably my 2 favourites are one of my first ever bosses, who was David Spence, simply because he was not a militant about the internet or digital. He was a businessman who was just very level-headed and was very open-minded, and he didn't get carried away at the beginning, was just very sensible when everybody else was going mad and losing their heads and we're all going to be gazillionaires. The second one is the passionate militant, which is Sandra Davey, whom I've known since my very first days. And she has just... she's so passionate that she just brings everybody with her. And so that combination of the pair of them have always been two people I've really looked up to.
I've had a very good professional relationship with Nick Leader, who has been a personal mentor of mine. He's the COO of News Digital Media, very smart, great relationships, very good with people, and he is someone I admire and has been a big influence on me. I think I just admire anybody out there who's running a digital media business, because there aren't any precedents or rules or guidebooks. A lot of it, they're doing it intuitively and by trial and error, and I admire that.
I'm a big fan of Simon Baker. He's actually also an investor in one of our funds, Future Capital, but he effectively took realestate.com.au from a very small company that was underperforming to effectively the number one in its space and highly profitable as well. So I definitely look up to Simon Baker.
There are many heroes emerging in Australian digital media, entrepreneurs, digital artists and technologists. Rebecca Horn at MySpace, I think, has worked miracles there. She's very impressive. But if we go way back, I would controversially say James Packer, I think, was one of the guys who saw the opportunity of digital media right at the beginning and put his money where his mouth was.